deserves resounding applause. So this is an event of
a symbolic gesture coming from a deep intellectual instinct to drive a generation of audacious writers and leaders of thought to inspire a positive change in Nigeria. That's the ideological park that comes with Professor Osita Ogbu, a former chief economic advisor to the president, in his timeless piece, Development as Attitude. The author's release also comes as a rallying point for intellectuals, political leaders, and economic scholars. For Nigeria's former president Goodluck Jonathan, it provides an outlet to share his standpoint on the need for a change of attitude if meaningful development is to be achieved in Nigeria.
And I actually believe that for us as a nation to develop, it's not just about even electing the best person. Even if you bring angels from heaven as the president and the attitude of Nigerians don't change, not just like the book reflected, not just the leader, but also the people. If our attitude don't change, we may not move very fast.
You can be in office for a few months and do what is right. You might not achieve it. Today, it's not because President Jonathan is here. I argue with everybody. Even this morning, I said to people, I said, listen, where are those people who are protesting when you increase fuel by 60 naira? Are they dead? Where are all those who are protesting when dollar was just 170? Are they dead now that it's 1,000? So the question that it was just that when things are going good, we have some people who are determined that we can't have the right thing.
The launch of Development as Attitude stimulates a strong wave of reflections on how scholars can influence a paradigm shift in leadership philosophy and citizens' orientation.
Chapter 6, Development Planning for Inclusiveness in an Uncommon Environment. This is another of the chapters I really like because he made one vital point. He says, the national planning assumes the existence of a collective national vision, a sense of nation, a common identity, and a common aspiration. But as you've seen from what our former president said when he came with a very bright idea, people will still pull in different directions. So he's saying, since development assumes there's a common vision, how then do you plan in such an uncommon environment? It's one of the favorites I have in that book.
Coming with an unassailable pedigree as an accomplished and world-class economist, we asked Professor Osita Ogbu the reasons for his interest in such an area.
We must rethink our current democratic model and practice, given the level of poverty in the land. The idea that there is one politics that will be valid for all people in all eras is part of a meta-narrative that can best be described as naive realism.
Just as a saying, nothing could be more successful than an idea whose time has come. Professor Ogbu's book once again speaks volumes on the need for Nigerians to begin an attitudinal change if the nation is to achieve a meaningful development. Benga Ashuru, Arise News.
I'm joined now by Professor Sylvester Monye, who is a special advisor to former President Jonathan on performance monitoring and evaluation. Good to see you and thanks for your time. A whole lot happening and, well, good thing you must have been able to get a glimpse of that book. But first, let's talk about attitude. You were in charge of performance monitoring. We should be able to monitor. It's not too late in the day to start to look at what we're not getting right in terms of governance from the government angle and the people, the citizens.
Well, thank you very much for that very useful question. But let me link the issue of attitude towards planning, monitoring, and evaluation. You see that you cannot possibly evaluate something that does not exist. For you to be able to make meaningful and credible evaluation of where you're going, you must have a roadmap. And that roadmap is what you call the medium-term development plan. You can have long-term development plan, but essentially medium-term and then, of course, long-term. So what is been lacking is the consciousness of the importance of planning as a tool for development. And when you talk to some public officials, the attitude is, what is it special about planning that you have to have a commission? To the extent that we had a National Planning Commission that was established by law, set aside and replaced with a ministry. The implication of that for me is that whereas the Planning Commission had laws or law governing its existence and operation, a ministry does not. A ministry has circulars and guidelines. So by shifting the powers of a commission to a ministry, I think the thinking may have been that they will also shift the powers. But it's not possible. It's either you're a commission or a ministry. If you're a commission, you have the powers protected by law that these are things you must do. But if you're a ministry, you are guided by the attitude of the government or the minister.
Because Professor Monye, tell us one thing now, the importance of planning. Because listening to you, it would seem as if we're talking about a tripod here. Planning, there must be a plan.
Yeah.
Then you monitor to see if you're going with that plan. And at the end of the day, you have a review, which is the evaluation.
Yeah.
So let's speak more on this, because this is part of what will culminate into a country's development.
Yes, you see, you are preaching to the converted. It is impossible for a country not to make conscious effort to have national plan. A national plan is what I call national roadmap that tells everybody.
Is it different from a political campaign agenda or promise?
Correct. A political campaign agenda or promise is exactly what you have said. It is a political campaign agenda or a promise. Now, once you finish with campaign, you now translate that campaign promise into an actionable plan that everybody will key into. I listen to people say, renewed hope, renewed hope. If you ask 2 or 3 people what the meaning of renewed hope, they can't explain it. That is one. 2, every minister, I've listened to some brilliant ministers speak. They know what they're doing. They understand their briefs. But where is the overarching plan that they are working with? Everybody is supposed to be singing the same, from the same song sheet and moving in the same direction. And that can only be established by a plan that is not only federal but national and approved by the Federal Executive Council. So you have a plan that is approved that says this is where everybody is going to. So the Minister of A will key into it, Minister of B will see how they fit in, everybody will fit in and move in the same direction. But where you don't have a national plan, what happens is that you begin to have brilliant ministers do their own thing. So they're all over the place doing their own thing. But not that they are wrong, but they are not moving to the same direction. And this is very significant because when you talk about attitude, at the launch today, a number of leaders were cited as credible example of what we could be, like Lee Kuan Yew, Mahathir of Malaysia, and even Paul Kagame of Rwanda. You see, these are strong leaders who had or who have agenda that says this is where we're going, and they follow it through. Now, of course, there was a debate as to, is it right for us to compare one country with another, given the nuances of each country? The answer is that you may not be able to compare, but there's one trait that you have running through. You cannot do anything without a plan. Now, let me give you a good example where I think planning plays a key role. In India, India is one of the largest countries in the world. We copied our development planning laws from India. What they do is they plan for everybody and allow every region to implement the plan. So you have everybody doing their own thing, but from the same song sheet.
So quickly here, because you know, Nigeria is a unique country, because if you talk about some of these leaders, Lee Kuan Yew, Paul Kagame, they have a little bit of autocratic traits in these people. You know, Nigerians can't actually accommodate such in any would-be leader with a plan. Now, let's see if we can close this conversation by speaking to bringing Nigeria back to when we had a National Planning Commission, so that there will be a convergence. That's the purpose of this conversation, a convergence of purpose hitting the same point.
Correct. I recently produced a volume, what I call compendium of national development plans from 1999 to 2020. Every government had a plan. The level of implementation is another thing. It is the attitudinal thing about how we see plan, what it means to us, the relevance. You know, when we talk to an average Nigerian, they will say, does it really matter? After all, they are not going to do it. Now, going back to the issue of some leaders having autocratic tendencies, you know, P2B was saying today that what we need is a parliamentary system that brings a leader to the parliament and he's interrogated. He will answer questions and tell you what he plans to do for the country or what he's not doing and defend what he's not doing. But when you have a presidential system like ours that creates a larger than life image of the office, that it becomes an attitudinal issue, that it becomes purely a subjective thing, that the occupier of the seat determines everything. You know, this is one country where you hear something like body language. We look at the body language of the president. It is the body language that will determine what everybody else does.
Well, I think that's a fine place for us to leave it. We really do hope that this conversation can be sustained, because you've just raised a very important point. The moment you said when we had, I said this is speaking in the past. So we have to bring it back to the front burner. Professor Sylvester Monye, many thanks for speaking with us here on Newsnight.
Thank you very much.